Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final Oscar prediction video for this year, where I will be taking a look at the big category of Best Picture. So, first of all, I would like to say I want to apologize for the fact that I haven't been making a bunch of additional content. I've only been doing the Oscar prediction category videos this year, and last year I made a bunch of additional content. This year I ended up being so much busier than I was last year. And I have a lot of ideas for additional content. I have an idea. I want to continue the shorts thing maybe I'm going to try to get that video out tomorrow before the Oscars. And I also have this one particular big idea that I might save until after the Oscars. But I've been directing a show, as I've talked about, and that took up so much time and so much energy that I was really drained when it came time to making videos for this channel, which is a shame because this is a really exciting Oscar year, and I've seen most of the nominated features, quite a good amount of the nominated shorts, actually, and I feel really tuned in to the Oscar race, and it's kind of a shame that I haven't really been fully in it as much as I'd like to be. I'd like to make this channel a bigger priority, and so hopefully more videos like that will come in the following days or weeks. But anyway, Best Picture. Now, the funny thing about this category is that there are 10 movies nominated for Best Picture, and 8 of them don't matter. I mean, obviously, great, talented filmmakers made really, really strong movies. This is overall a very strong Best Picture lineup, and these movies will continue to get talked about for years after the fact. All that is true, but only 2 of these movies have any shot whatsoever at winning Best Picture. There is, frankly, no reality in which one of the other 8 movies wins. I can rank these 8 movies in pretty much any way I want. The only movies that anybody cares about this year are the top 2, which is partially understandable because the top 2 are really, really that good. But at the same time, I do want to take a moment to highlight the 8 also-rans in this category. So, without further ado, 10th most likely to win is F1. So, this is a little bit of a surprise, I think you would say. This is a movie where, when it came out in the summer, absolutely nobody was talking about this as a potential Best Picture nominee. People were talking about this as a below-the-line contender, but Best Picture, like, that never even crossed anybody's mind. It wasn't until very, very late in the season when it got a surprise PGA nomination when people were like, well, maybe this can happen. And really, it only got in, I think, because other blockbusters like Wicked and Avatar disappointed, and there was a slot to nominate an extra blockbuster. And I think the general consensus is that F1 is the weakest film in the Best Picture lineup this year, but to be honest, it's really not that bad of a film. It is a solid blockbuster with really, really well done craft elements and a bad script. But it's not nominated for script, so I can let that one go. As these dad movies go, it works. It's solid. It's, again, the craft elements are all really, really well done. I respect the nominations that it does have. I would have understood if it had gotten in for cinematography or score. At the same time, though, it was never going to contend for directing, writing, or acting, because that's just the kind of film that it is, unfortunately. And there is a part of me, again, this is not an exact ranking. I would not be shocked if this one ranked a little bit higher than people are expecting on the final ballot, but it's not going to win. This movie really has no deeper meaning, no message that would make people feel good about voting for it. It's just a guys being dudes movie, and that might get it a handful of votes, but even if people want to go for a big studio blockbuster that made money, there's another movie in this category that's going to get all those votes. So F1, I think, big surprise, has no realistic chance at winning Best Picture. 9th most likely to win is Begonia. Okay, so this is an interesting example because Yorgos Lanthimos and his collaborator now, Emma Stone, have been in this conversation a few times before for Poor Things and The Favorite. Both strong movies, both arguably in the top echelon of contenders that could have won Best Picture that year, but ultimately neither one came up victorious. And Begonia is a movie where The reviews were better than Kinds of Kindness, but initially there was a bit of a question mark of, oh, this one's kind of divisive. People aren't really sure how they feel about the ending. Maybe this one could sneak into Best Picture. We'll see what happens. And then throughout the precursor season, it just kept showing up. It got in everywhere it needed to. And so it ended up being a really, really safe bet for Best Picture. Kind of surprising people because I don't feel like there's a ton of passion behind this one. There's some people that really like it, some people that don't. It is a weirder movie. I guess these days you gotta have at least one weird movie in Best Picture just so the Academy can show that they're with it. They can go for the bizarre sometimes, but I just don't feel like there's a lot of passion. I think there's a solid amount of people who really like it, but there's just as many people, if not more, who think this is too weird and who think that the ending doesn't work. Sorry. It's like 2 a.m. when I'm recording this. Sorry. And I do think on a preferential ballot, that's really going to hurt it. Also, this is the only Best Picture nominee that I don't think has a realistic shot to win in any of the categories it's nominated in. So, sorry, Yorgos Lanthimos, Emma Stone. You guys stay weird. You guys keep making movies together, and maybe you'll get in the Oscar conversation again at some point, but you're not going to win for this one. 8th most likely to win is Train Dreams. Okay, so this one is interesting. This is a well-received movie. It's a movie that played at Sundance at the beginning of the year, and people were like, oh, this is nice. Maybe it could get a cinematography nomination. We'll see. And people kind of forgot about it because they assumed that Netflix would have much bigger contenders later in the race. And then after some of those contenders flopped, people sort of went back to Train Dreams and was like, hold on, this is actually the best critically received movie that Netflix has this year. Let's give this a push. And it did get a push. I mean, for once, Netflix doesn't have the worst rated Best Picture nominee in the category, which they kind of had the past few years. But good on you, Netflix, for acquiring this movie at Sundance. And it is a good movie. It's also a very slow movie, a very existential film. So not the sort of thing that would do well on a preferential ballot. I think the closest comparison would be something like Tree of Life, or maybe if you wanted to make the best comparison possible, you could say Power of the Dog, but that still didn't win. The critics like this quiet contemplative stuff, but when it comes to appealing to the masses and the broad demographics, you need as much broad appeal as possible to win on the preferential ballot. And this is a good movie. I'm glad it has the nomination. I'm glad we got one good Netflix movie in here, but unfortunately, I don't think this has a very good chance at winning at all. 7th most likely to win is Frankenstein. So you know how I said they got one good Netflix movie in here? They also got one, in my opinion, not so good Netflix movie in here. I actually would personally rank this as the weakest of the Best Picture nominees, and I am not alone. I've seen a number of people say the same thing. And it's a film that has a bit of a divisive response. Fortunately, there's just enough positive response, much like F1, because of the text. People are really, really impressed by the tech work in that movie, and I think that helped it get into Best Picture. And the funny thing is, this movie is going to win multiple Oscars on the night. At least that's the general perception. It's going to win production design, costume design, makeup, and hairstyling. And the fact that it's going to win that trifecta, you could argue, I mean, because the top 2 movies in this race are so locked, there's not a ton of other movies here with a realistic shot at winning multiple Oscars. So Frankenstein having this package, plus, if you really wanted to be generous, you could argue that maybe Jacob Elordi still has a shot. So this is one of the few movies that arguably has a path to winning Best Picture. Unfortunately, I don't think the support is there. I do think that while Del Toro does have his fans, it's not up for Best Director. It's a film that has quite a lot of backlash from some people, including me. And I think the below-the-line tech wins are going to be enough. I don't think there's enough support for this thing. I think the Academy they gave Del Toro his due with Shape of Water, and I don't think this movie has anywhere near the same amount of broad appeal. It got the nomination, which is slightly surprising to me, but with all due respect, I don't think this has a realistic shot at winning at all. 6th most likely to win is Sentimental Value. So this is one that realistically probably deserves to be a little bit higher, but I want to stay consistent with my best international feature ranking. And again, no movie outside of the top two has a real shot at winning this. But Sentimental Value does have a lot of nominations for the kind of movie it is. The fact that it got into Best Editing is a big deal. The fact that it got all 4 acting nominations is a big deal. This is a film that premiered at Cannes to really, really strong reviews. And it seemed for a while like this was going to be a top contender for the Best Picture prize. But then the more time passed since Cannes, the buzz on this movie just slowly died down as other festival movies took up more spotlight attention. Because it is a very quiet movie. It's not a movie that calls a lot of attention to itself, much like Train Dreams. And that's the sort of thing that critics like, but when it comes to broad commercial appeal, it does hurt it a little bit. I think it gets points for being the only movie in this category that's about movies. I think some Oscar voters may go for it because of that, but it just doesn't seem like there's that much support for the film. It doesn't have a single locked up win, both supporting actor and international feature. You could argue it could win those, but I think something else is going to win both those categories. So, yeah, solid nomination for Sentimental Value. Glad it's here, but I don't think the support is there for it to go all the way for Best Picture. Surprise, surprise. 5th most likely to win is The Secret Agent. So again, probably this one should be below Sentimental Value, but I put this one ahead of Sentimental Value for international, so it's only fair. I want to be consistent. And to be fair, this movie does deal with the rising issue of fascism, which is very, very prevalent in our country right now, and it might compel some voters to maybe give this a look. And I really, really do want to emphasize, even though we have not had a non-English language film win Best Picture since Parasite, I do think we've gotten close a number of times, and I don't think the matter of a film not being in English is an issue anymore. I think the Academy will be ready to do it again pretty soon, but just not for this particular movie. And Secret Agent, a well-liked film, a well-respected film. Wagner Moura could surprise in Best Actor if you want to argue that it has a path to picture. I do think the narrative of what the film is about might give it one of the strongest arguments of being that dark horse contender. But ultimately, it only has 4 nominations, and that is not a lot, and it could happen. It didn't have that many precursors. Neither does anything outside of the top 2. But yeah, number 5 feels like a good place to put it. 4th most likely to win is Marty Supreme. So this is a movie that it has the benefit of coming out relatively late in the year. It came out Christmas Day, the last big thing that a lot of people saw, fresh on voters' minds, and it's a good movie. It's a really well-executed film that starts kind of as a sports drama, but ultimately turns into this madcap character study of this guy who just needs to take a lesson in humility, much like the star Timothée Chalamet. And the movie is very well received. Josh Safdie is a well-received filmmaker. And if Chalamet does win Best Actor, which I'm not currently predicting, but could happen, you could argue maybe there's a case. The problem is almost every Best Picture winner recently has also won screenplay. It's really hard to win Best Picture without screenplay, and both screenplay categories are locked up. So it's kind of hard for one of these other movies to stake a claim as a Best Picture contender. And I do think Marty Supreme has a lot of nominations, more than I was expecting. But just because it got nominations doesn't mean it's going to manifest those into wins. And I think the only category that this movie has a realistic shot at winning is Chalamet. And even that is not a guarantee at all. So I do think that number 4 is the right place to put it. 3rd most likely to win is Hamnet. Okay, so if we're being totally realistic here, this has got to be your number 3 in the category. All those other movies, they're solid contenders, but none of them have any precursor wins. Hamnet has one major precursor win, which is the Golden Globe for Best Picture Drama, beating out another movie that I'm going to talk about in a second. So, based on that logic, is there a world where Hamnet comes up from behind and takes it? Well, part of the reason why I don't think that can happen is that it is a very sad film. It's a depressing film, and Oscars don't usually like to go for depressing. They want to go with something that voters can feel good voting for. But the main reason why I don't think this can win Best Picture is because it lost BAFTA. This is a very, very British movie about one of the most British people who ever lived, William Shakespeare, one of the most famous British people who ever lived. I don't know if you can quantify most British, but certainly he was one of the most famous. And you would think that if this movie had a reasonable shot at winning Best Picture, it would win BAFTA. And a lot of people were actually predicting that it would win BAFTA and be like a solid third place contender. But it lost BAFTA, and I think with that, it lost any chance of being in contention for the Best Picture Oscar. I think on the Awards Expert app, 1% of voters have this as their Best Picture winner. And again, that's higher than every other movie we've talked about so far. So it really, really does come down to these two. And you know, sometimes when there's two contenders that are neck and neck for winning something, a third place contender can come up from behind and win. But I don't think that's the case this year. I truly don't believe any of these three movies have what it takes to beat these top two. And you know what? Rather than do the traditional thing of, say, number 2 most likely to win is so-and-so, number 1 most likely to win is so-and-so, I think these two films are so intrinsically linked. And I have so much I want to say about this choice that I kind of think I have to approach this in a different way. So, the top 2 movies in this category are One Battle After Another and Sinners, as you most likely know by now. So, let's talk about how crazy this race is. I have never had another movie outside of this top 2 as the Best Picture frontrunner all year. When I did my year in advance predictions, I started by putting One Battle After Another at number 1 because it was Paul Thomas Anderson teaming up with Leo DiCaprio, and that seemed like a recipe for Oscar success, so I put it at number 1. And then Sinners came out, and it became this huge phenomenon, and I realized that this had a lot of momentum behind it, and I decided to put that at number 1. And a few months later, One Battle came out to really extraordinary reviews, and I decided to put One Battle back at number 1. And we got to the critics' precursors. One Battle was winning almost everything, but Sinners was picking up all of the awards that One Battle didn't win. And I noticed, again, no other movie was winning anything. It was literally just these two winning every single prize. And that made me very curious. I was thinking, okay, if anything could beat One Battle, it is Sinners. Then the Oscar nominations were announced, and Sinners got nominated in every single eligible category. It demolished the record for most nominations for any film in history. Now, coming off of these Oscar nominations, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think it's going to be Sinners. Because, and this was my argument, a lot of casual moviegoers who don't pay a ton of attention to the Oscar race, they see that headline that Sinners has got more nominations than any movie in history, and their assumption is, oh, it's got to be winning. And if it doesn't win, they're probably going to call out racist. I'm thinking back to the 12 Years a Slave year, where some voters were like, oh, if I don't vote for this, are people going to think I'm racist? And I thought that could potentially boost Sinners up, on top of it being a really, really great movie that was so mainstream and had all of this universal support behind it. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go for Sinners. Even if it just wins SAG, that'll be enough to make me go with it. And wouldn't you know it, it just won SAG. Everything else went to One Battle. But coming off of that SAG win, I was like, this is it. This is going to happen. The love is in the air for Sinners. I really, really think this is going to happen. And then as we got closer and closer to Oscar day, doubt started to creep in. And I looked at all of the prizes that One Battle has won, and enough people were like, just go with One Battle. It's the easy choice. And I wavered. And then I was like, no, I am going to go for Sinners. I am going to go for Sinners. And I sort of went back and forth for a little while. And even just this morning, when I got out of bed, I was thinking, okay, when I record my Oscar prediction video, I'm going to predict Sinners. And then I watched a certain video where a commentator brought up a very interesting point. They said, if we were just looking at American voters, then One Battle and Sinners are probably at 50-50. But once we factor in the international voters, that is gonna really boost One Battle's chances. Now, international voters, I will give Sinners this. It won 3 awards at BAFTA. I was thinking that Sinners was going to pull in Everything Everywhere and only win 1 below the line category at BAFTA, but it won 3. It overperformed. And I was like, okay, this means that Sinners is potentially more popular than Everything Everywhere was with overseas voters. But, okay. So, the thing that makes this category so hard is that both Sinners and One Battle After Another feel like winners. It's kind of hard to say in any way other than that, but not only do they both feel like winners, they both feel very reminiscent of very recent, specific winners that we've had. Sinners feels like Everything Everywhere. It's that early year release genre film, not the sort of movie that you would normally expect to be an Oscar contender, but there's so much hype behind it, so much love. It's a movie that plays with different genres. It's a movie that just makes people come out to the movies and makes people so excited. It's the unorthodox choice that gets people excited to vote for it. Like, wouldn't it be cool if this won Best Picture? And that helps build the narrative. At the same time, One Battle After Another is a much more traditional film like Oppenheimer, and both movies are from legendary filmmakers who were considered overdue, had never won an Oscar before, and this is our opportunity to finally shower this person with flowers, as well as making a really, really great movie with extraordinary text, an extraordinary cast, and a film that is very, very present to our current political moment. So they both feel like winners. This feels as though Everything Everywhere and Oppenheimer both came out in the same year, and we have to make a decision as to which film is stronger. And I don't know. I'll say this. If either one of these movies had come out last year, they would have beaten Nora. I can say that with confidence. So, I gotta make a choice. And these are both really, really, really great movies. I bet both filmmakers would be perfectly content losing to each other. Because they're both great films. They're both Warner Brothers films. There's a narrative there with Warner Brothers closing down. This win could be seen as a swan song for them. Like, if there was ever a year to have a tie in Best Picture, it would be this year. And it would make sense. But there can't be a tie in Best Picture. I have to make a choice. And my head says One Battle After Another. My heart says Sinners. And I've gone back and forth, and I know you're listening to this video just waiting for me to decide already. And ultimately, I came to this conclusion. The one factor that I was sort of not wanting to consider is PGA. PGA is considered the most accurate predictor of Best Picture, and PGA went for One Battle. Not only that, but if you look at the instances where PGA has differed from the Oscar, usually, PGA tends to go for a movie that's more of a mainstream, crowd-pleaser blockbuster than the movie the Oscars choose. So, based on PGA's sensibility, they should have wanted to reward Sinners. And I had to ask myself the question, if Sinners really is the stronger film, if Sinners is going to win Best Picture at the Oscars, then why did it lose PGA? And I have tried to come up with an answer to that question, and I can't. Every other precursor that Sinners lost, I can come up with some sort of excuse for it. Oh, Golden Globes, it's not their type of movie, and they had the box office category. Critics' Choice, One Battle is the critics' pick, and they love PTA. BAFTA, Sinners is a very American movie. But why did it lose PGA? I can't answer that. Sinners should have won PGA. And I see a lot of people who are still going with Sinners. And I wish I were one of them. I probably would vote Sinners in this category, but granted, it is very, very close between Sinners and One Battle. They're both amazing movies. And I need to remind myself of the fact that no matter which movie wins, it's going to be a very deserving win. And a part of me was feeling, okay, but the energy for Sinners is so strong right now. The vibes. If Sinners is announced as the Best Picture winner, that's going to be such an incredible moment. Yes, I could see it happen because, again, Sinners feels like a winner. If Sinners had come out last year, it would have won. But this year, it's up against one battle. And it's just really, really unfortunate timing that these two great American masterpieces came out in the same year. Two films that will be studied and loved for generations to come. Two films that years from now, people will debate whether or not the right movie won Best Picture. And I can go on and on and on about it, but no matter how many times I try to justify that it can still be Sinners, I just ask myself the question of why did it lose PGA, and I can't answer that question. So my official prediction is one battle after another. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully I will have some more videos for you in the coming days and the coming weeks, probably at least one more fun little Oscar video before the ceremony. And thank you guys very much for staying with me all year, and I will see you when I see you. Take care.